So today I want to give just a very quick message about forgiveness. And forgiveness is probably the most powerful thing you can do to improve the quality of your life. And so there's many different ways to look at it, and there's been so much talk about it over the ages, right? You got to forgive somebody, and we know this. You got to let go, and so forth. So a nuance to this mechanism of forgiveness is that a lot of times when you think you've forgiven somebody, the trouble is you remember what they did. And so you sort of like say, it's okay, I forgive you, but then you still hold it against them in some way, or you bring it up and it's still in the memory. And this is not something that's really taught. That I've only come across this in some very powerful spiritual teachings. One would be Course in Miracles, and I think David Hawkins talks about this in Surrendering, Letting Go. And some of the other teachers, I don't remember if Gurdjieff has specifically addressed this or not, but I think he was probably more into self-awareness. So in the mechanism of forgiveness is you have forgiven that person, which means now you've unloaded a burden, because when we hold on to something against somebody else, we harbor unconscious guilt. And the reason is because there is no real separation. So on a very fundamental, deep level of being, everything is connected. And so when we understand our story, when we understand that sort of innocent story that we have, that we are separate, but we don't see it, is that I've put that person in the role of the aggressor for me, or that person to teach me a lesson, or that person to do that thing to me. And on certain levels of consciousness, we do not like to admit this. We don't like to accept the fact that I'm responsible for everything that I receive in my life. So which makes real forgiveness really fucking difficult, because I've got to accept some shitty stuff, and I would never consciously choose to have that stuff happen to me. I would never consciously choose to put myself in those situations, and I would never consciously choose to have you do that stuff to me. But as I get to know my story, as I get to see how interconnected everything is, and I get to see this reflective nature of reality playing out, is that I have to forgive you, because that also lightens my load, it lightens my burden. But now I also recognize that I'm forgiving you for how I saw you, and then I have to forgive myself for putting you into that role of being that person to me. And then I see the whole of humanity. So as you go through these levels of letting go, of forgiveness and surrendering, these tensions in the mind, you have to continue. And so it's not just I forgive you and it's done, right? It's probably not done because it came back at some point, and it might be me, it might be somebody else, it might be a situation somewhere 10 years down the road, and you think, what the fuck, I kicked that, I forgave that. Well, you didn't, because it wasn't complete. And you'll know it's complete. You'll know it's complete. So you just have to go through the levels and continue to surrender, forgive. You forgive that person, then forgive yourself for how you saw that person. And that's really taking ownership of the entirety of the situation of your life, because you can't, until you take ownership of everything, you have no control, and you a very limited sense of awareness. And so when you forgive yourself for how you saw the other person, for what you experienced from them, and then at a certain point, when you witness what happens as a result of that, then you see that this whole complexity of life, that how it all fits together. And then there was nothing to forgive, because at a certain point, when the thinking mind stops, when there's not attachment to the solid physical stuff in front of you as reality, you see that life is getting drawn out of you, and you're fulfilling the destiny of it. And the suffering comes in when we try to control and manipulate it based on these preferences and these limitations that we have through this human body. So forgiveness, I guess to be able to see this, be able to take responsibility for what you're forgiving for somebody else doing, or something. It could be just the whole world. At a certain point, we have to forgive the world for being what it is, because sometimes it's kind of shitty. And so everyone in the world is a gift, no matter how difficult or challenging they are. Everything is a gift, because it help us realize who we are, because it's part of us, and we wouldn't want to push part of us away unless we thought that there was something wrong or bad. But there's not. There's not anything wrong. There's not anything bad. So when we can learn to accept and integrate all of who we are, the world starts to show up as a pretty friendly place. And you can accept all these things that at one level is suffering, and at another level it's joy. And it's all hidden in that same little nugget. So forgiveness is a very powerful practice, and it takes practice a lot of times. And do it until it's perfect. You do it till it's complete, and you will know when it's complete. And then continue to go on and start forgiving everything and everyone in your life, and then watch what happens. Watch how the beautiful nature unfolds in front of you.